Hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar today on the Informatica Cloud Spring release. We're very excited to have you with us today because we have a whole host of new features we're going to be talking about. With us today is Krupa Natarajan, Director of Cloud Product Management, Abhishek Sani from Cloud Customer Support, and during the Q&A session we will also be having Naresh Govindaraj, our VP of Cloud Product Management. Just before we begin, here's a safe harbor statement that will give you some time to read. Just lets you know that the information being provided today is for informational purposes only. And now let's go ahead and delve into the agenda. We're going to be talking about several Cloud Mapping Designer enhancements, specifically in the areas of hierarchical web services as well as data masking. We're going to be talking about a new feature called Secure Agent Groups. We'll talk about the latest offering from our cloud support organization called Discovery IQ. We'll update you on some enhancements we've made to our Odata provider, and we'll also talk about various connector enhancements. So let's talk about some of the different Cloud Mapping Designer enhancements you can expect to see in this release. We basically bucketed it into two areas for this release: web services and data masking. What you'll notice with web services is that there's several new enhancements there, and with regards to data masking, a lot of different transformations and rules based on data type. Let's delve into those a little deeper. When it comes to data masking, as a lot of you know, there have been several instances in our industry of late where there have been security breaches. So when you're integrating your data, it's extremely important to have these masking rules in place, especially for sensitive information such as credit cards and social security numbers. So what we've introduced in this release, as you'll notice, is a special data masking transform. And this data masking transform has several different rules that you can initiate into that transform. Rules for social security numbers, phone numbers, IP addresses, even physical address details, and many more. We're also very proud to introduce a lot of different advances in our web services functionality. For most of you that have been involved in integrating web services, you'll notice that a lot of the web services you deal with are very hierarchical in nature. And what we've done with this release is making integrating with those hierarchical web services a lot easier. For example, let's say you have a denormalized object and you want to map the denormalized object to a web service with a lot of different hierarchies. We make it a lot easier for you to do so. Not only that, if you have related objects that are joined that need to be mapped to a hierarchical web service, we make that easy for you as well to accomplish. Moreover, we also allow you to define your own web services. Let's say you want to parse a web service, but you don't want to parse through the entire WSDL. We allow you to basically define that specific web service and logically group the operation schema elements that only you want to integrate with. The benefit of this approach is that we abstract through the protocol, the data format, and we automatically discover the data for you. So to go into more details around our capabilities of this particular Cloud Mapping Designer with regards to web services as well as data masking, I'm happy to bring on board Krupa Natarajan, our Director of Cloud Product Management, for a live demo of these capabilities. Krupa, take it away.
Thank you, Ashwin. So we'll start with the Cloud Mapping Designer enhancement. So I'm logging in to my account. So for those of you that are familiar with Cloud Mapping Designer, this is our fully cloud-enabled mapping canvas which allows you to build fairly advanced mappings across multiple sources and targets using your cloud-based interface. So let me start with the masking transformation that Ashwin was just talking about. Let me go ahead and bring up a mapping that I've pre-built so we can walk through it. So again, this is the Cloud Mapping Designer. We have many of the transformations that you're familiar with, such as the sources, target, joins, sorter, aggregator, and so on. What you will notice on this palette is a new transformation for data masking. You can use that anywhere in your mapping logic. Here I have my Salesforce contacts as source. I have it sorted and I'm dumping that into a flat file on my desktop. So I have contact information of real Salesforce customers, which means that I have their sensitive information such as phone numbers, addresses, first and last names, and so on. So as a best practice, we don't want to be bringing that data in access into a data dump. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is introduce data masking here. And I'll go ahead and add that separately so we can end up with a masked dump as well as an unmasked data dump so you can see the difference. So what I've done here is I'm adding data masking. And once I mask the data, I'm going to move that data into a separate target, which would be a masked dump of the data. So we'll say, all right. So let me delve into the data masking transformation. So much like any other transformation, you can add it into anywhere in the pipeline. It has a way to tell what fields are flowing down the pipeline into the transformation itself. Our familiar link rules, which allow you to logically bring in fields based on data types and field names, all of that apply to the data masking transformation itself. However, when I go into the masking rules, I can now add a rule. So when I click on add, I have a list of all the fields that are coming in from the source. I can go over this and select the fields that I want to mask. So for example, here I'm choosing the first and last name. I could mask the phone numbers. I can mask emails and any other sensitive information that we may have. So once I select the fields that I want to mask, I go ahead and click OK. Now, it then allows me to define a rule based on which I can mask the field. So we have a bunch of predefined rules that generate masked information. So I can substitute the name based on a substitution name. It will randomly generate. You can choose whether these names that are randomly generated can repeat. You can add a seed value. You can go ahead and click on phone, choose a rule that's been pre-built, which says it randomly generate a phone number that masks the original phone number and replaces it with a number that is generated by the system, and so on. So as you can see, there's a bunch of different rules that you can apply, ranging from masking with credit card numbers to SSNs, keys and zip codes and addresses and so on. Makes it extremely easy for you to mask your data as you move that between one application and other systems, so the data becomes secure as propagates along. So going in here, I'm going to just choose institution name, click OK, and you can see that I can do this across a bunch of different fields. That's pretty much it. So the transformation is extremely simple. It's extremely powerful behind the scenes because it allows you to randomly come up with test data, and extremely helpful in situations where you're creating a copy of your application data into a test environment. You don't want to bring the real production data over. It's very easy to introduce this transformation and introduce these rules, but behind the scenes, it's a fairly advanced engine that then generates that test information needed. So over on the target side, I'm just going to choose to pump that into a file, and I can choose randomly I can generate a file based on the data, and pretty much that's all I need to do. So what I've done through this mapping is I've taken my Salesforce information, masked them into a file. I've also created them as is, and then I would be able to compare this when I go ahead and run this. actually switch over at this point into web services and what we've done around the web service transformation. We've introduced a powerful way of being able to reach out into any web service. It may be legacy web services that you have, any cloud applications that are exposed to service, any service for that matter, and be able to bring data from that web service into your mapping pipeline. So in order to do that, we've introduced the concept of a business service definition. So here I have a business service definition that's been created for a web service that exposes weather information. So this particular service, I'm connecting to it, and there's basic information provided here. So I've provided the virtual URL, I've provided the endpoint that I need to connect to, and I have a couple of authentication schemes that I can choose from. This particular weather service does not require authentication, so I don't need to choose it, but if it did, then I have a way of specifying the username and password. Once I define where that web service resides, when we click OK, what we do behind the scenes is go ahead and parse through that the definition of that web service and bring in all the operations that the web service exposes. We've also by this point parsed through and understood what the request and response structures are. So we can, so what we're doing here is creating an abstracted business service definition, which is an abstracted layer over that web service that we're connecting to. So, for example, if your web service is exposing 50 different operations and all that you're interested in is 5 of those 50 operations, then you can go ahead and select those 1 or 2 operations or the 5 operations that you're interested in and bring them in. So, for example, I can click on Get Weather Information. So what I've done here is created an abstraction which has already done the parsing, understands the WSDL, understands the request and response structures, and created a subset that I can then use in the mapping. This also abstracts the protocol away. For example, when we do enhance this to be able to support REST endpoints, the way that this business service definition will be consumed in the mapping will be exactly the same, regardless of whether what protocol we use to connect to the actual service and get the information off. So once I've created this business service definition, I can go ahead and start using it in my mapping. Let me click OK, go into mappings, and let me bring up a mapping that I've pre-built that uses the web service. So here's the Get Weather mapping. So what I'm doing here is I have information about some orders that I have, and I have information about the shipment cities, and I'm trying to go ahead and get that distribution city list from a source. So I preview this data so you can see that. So I have a bunch of zip codes here, and all I need to do is pass those zip codes into this weather service and get information about the weather forecast in that area, so I can pump that into shipment information. So I go into, again, in the palette we've introduced the web service transformation, so you'll see it here. You can add that into your mapping, and when you go into the definition of that transformation, from the list of business services, you can select any business service that you've pre-created. In my case, I just pre-created a weather service business service definition, so I see that appearing here. When I choose that, it provides me a list of operations that I can pick. And since I've already abstracted and I'm only interested in 2 of the operations that the service exposes, it only shows me those 2 operations over here. So let me choose Get City Forecast by Zip. Once I do that, it gives me the request structure. It also gives me what I would expect from the response. And it also allows me to preview what the false information I will get if that service returns a fault. So once I have that, then all I need to do is go into field mapping. I have the list of fields coming in from my source over here, and I need to map that over into the request fields that the web service expects. So here, this is a fairly simple request structure, so it only expects this. So if I go ahead, let me unmap this. You can see that I can drag and drop and map this information over. And In most cases, the request and the response structures are hierarchical, so I would be able to expand them out. I would still be able to do a very simple drag and drop to map my incoming fields into those request fields. What you will also notice that the web service transformation by default has two output groups, a success group and a fall group. So when the service invocation is successful and it responds with a valid response, I can route all of that data over through one pipeline, and I can capture all the faults from the web service invocation into a separate target if needed. So you have that neatly separated into the success and the fault groups, so you can decide to propagate that forward in a way that makes sense. So pretty much it. I have my request fields, I have my response fields, I added a target, and as you can see, the incoming fields for the target are the response fields from that web service. I only sent in the zip code, so it's sending me city, date, daytime, highs, lows, things that you would expect from a weather forecasting service. Once I have that information, I can go into the target fields. So I'm choosing to just generate a target. Otherwise, if I'm choosing to map this into a pre-existing target, I can go ahead and map these response fields and pretty much consume that web service. Let me take another example where the web service is fairly involved. For example, I have a HRM application here, and the web service that it exposes, the request and the response structures are fairly involved, much more complex as compared to the simple weather service that I was connecting to. So in this case, I'm using a business service definition that was created for HRM application, and out of that, I have pre-selected a bunch of these operations that I'm interested in, particularly an update employee personal info operation. So in this example, I'm using Workday's Bristol, which is fairly advanced, but this is to demonstrate that you can do fairly advanced hierarchical mappings using the web service transformation. So let me expand out the request structure here, and you will see that there's a fairly detailed level of hierarchy, and also the response structure returns an acknowledgement. Some of these web services, and I'll show you in just a minute, have certain components in the request that need more clarification. There may be choices, and you may have to define which object type in the request that you will be sending. So we have an interactive way in the business service definition to go in and explore the request structure, define those dependent fields, define the objects where there is a choice, and prepare that the request structure so you can just come in and use it in the mapping. So here I have three different sources for the employee. There's an employee information, there's their address information, and the education information. And I'm bringing all of that data into this web service transformation. So in the field mapping, I have the structure that has the three different data. What I can do here is I do not need to go in and pre-join these fields. And if I expand on the right-hand side, there's a fairly involved structure here. I can go in and define how these fields relate to each other, how these records relate to each other, by going in and defining a primary key on the employee. And for the address, employee address, there's an employee ID that I can relate to the employee information, and define that as a foreign key related to the employee data, and do the same with the education information as well. So even if I have three discrete set of information coming in, I can define how that data ties together. So this is a relational source, and I'm tying the data together so it can go ahead and join that data and then be able to map these fields over into the hierarchical structure on the right-hand side. So let me see here. So there's education information, there's institution. So from this point on, it's fairly straightforward to go in and map these fields from those different objects into the hierarchy on the right-hand side. Again, so what we do here is provide you with a powerful ability to be able to stick in a transformation in your mapping through which you can call into any web service and be able to map your data into that web service request, get response from that web service, propagate it down your pipeline, and do that using a very simple interface that's provided through the mapping designer. And to simplify that both further, we've abstracted away the definition of the web service through what we call the business service definition, which is a logical definition that you add, which points to the web service in the back end. It allows you to filter down the operations that you're interested in, abstract the protocol away. So the way you use a web service in a mapping is the same regardless of what protocols and what technology, or the complexity of the wisdom that lies behind it. Okay, with that I can turn it over to Ashwin.
So now that we talked about the Cloud Mapping Designer, let's go and talk about secure agent groups. And this is really a feature that a lot of our enterprise customers have been asking us about. With this Spring release, what we allow you to do is to set up groups of secure agents such that your tasks are no longer associated with a single physical agent, but rather logically associated with a group of secure agents. And with these secure agent groups, we have auto detection of unavailable agents and distribution of jobs in round-robin fashion. So let's talk about some of the use cases for these secure agent groups. And the number one use case for it that our enterprise customers asked us for was scalability. So we now have the ability for distributing the task load across multiple agents. From the point of view of availability, we can auto-detect unavailable agents and direct it to an available agent. And we also provide operational flexibility because tasks are no longer coupled with physical agents and are instead assigned to a logical agent group. So these were a lot of features that our enterprise customers were asking us for, and we're very, very happy to provide these features in this Spring release. To give you an overview of how these secure agents work, I'm going to bring on Kripa Natarajan once again to go over how you can go ahead and set up these different agent groups.
So what you will notice is under configure, in place of where we had secure agents, we now have what we call runtime environments, which are a group of agents. If you had multiple agents prior to the Spring 2015 release, you will notice that we've automatically gone ahead and created a runtime environment containing each of that agent. Now, here I have 3 agents, and I want to be able to associate all of my tasks that run against, let's say, Salesforce, to a group of agents that can round robin through those tasks. So I have an agent group here. I'm going to go ahead and rename this environment so I can provide a logical name that makes sense. So we'll call this my demo agent group. So once I have that, I can manage the agents that are available in the demo agent group. Each agent may only belong to one group, so I will go ahead and edit this group to remove the agent out of this single group that was pre-created. And go ahead and edit the demo agent group and add that other agent back into this. So what I've created here is a logical group called the demo agent group. I'll have 2 agents associated with it. And I'm going to go ahead and associate the connections that I have. Let me look for a particular connection. And edit this to belong to the So I would edit a connection that I have and associate that with a group of agents rather than with a singular agent. What this allows me to do is all tasks that I have that run against that particular connection would be distributed in a round-robin fashion across the agents in that group. And also, if an agent were to come down, for example, if this particular agent is not available, then my task will automatically be assigned to run on the second agent that's available in the group. Rather than associating tasks with individual agents, which creates a point of failure when your agent goes down. We now have a way to associate tasks to run on a group of agents. So the Informatica Cloud Service can allocate your task to run on an available agent in the group. So you don't have to worry about HA, you don't have to worry about bringing up another agent, reassociating all your tasks and connections on the second agent and manually. It's automatically taken care of by the system. So in many cases, you may have a primary and a secondary agent. If you have a large number of tasks that are running, this also provides some distribution of tasks across those agents. So each agent has relatively lower load as well. And as Abhishek would walk you through, we also have some predictions that are available that will help you plan your agent grouping to better suit your task volumes and job volumes.
So now we've gone over a demo of the secure agent groupings, and let's go over Informatica Discovery IQ. This is a great offering from our cloud customer support group, and we first announced it in the winter release, and we've made some more enhancements to it. So what Discovery IQ allows you to do is it gives you more awareness into the kinds of features you're using within Informatica Cloud and how you're using it. And what this does is it lets you have a better SLA to your business stakeholders and also accelerate your integration projects. Moreover, you also have the ability to have a personalized support experience as well as a resolution of your cases. So what are some of these features that are available in Discovery IQ? Well, A, you have enterprise-wide operational visibility. For instance, you have the capability of forecasting what your volume might look like in the future based on previous usage. You also have more targeted insights into your usage. For example, let's say it could be at the user policy level, or it could even be at the task level. And this allows you to do a best practices analysis of all your integrations. We also give you the ability to have a detailed log analysis so that you can perform error trending based on the kinds of errors you're seeing with your secure agents. And finally, we provide a recommendation engine where, based on your product usage, be it the connectors you're using or some of the integration features you're using, we use some recommendations. To go into a live demo of these various features, I'm now going to hand the ball over to Abhishek Sani from our cloud customer support team. Abhishek, please stand by while I make you presenter. All right, take it away.
Thank you, Ashwin. So as Ashwin mentioned, we have our new support offering, which is to take the customer experience to the next level. So we are taking some of the proactive measures here. We have predefined set of rules in this tool that you would see a new item added in Spring 2015 release under Administrator tab. What it means is you should be able to use the Discovery IQ right through the cloud user interface. When you click on this menu item, it will use a single sign-on feature and use authentication with the same user that you have logged into the cloud UI. Once we authenticate, it will take you to the landing page, which is the dashboard. And what we show here is the very high-level summary of your feature usage. How are you using the cloud features? How much volume that you're processing? How is your agent environment health? So that gives you a very high-level summary just to see that, okay, what's the success rate that you're hitting? Let's say that you come out with a requirement that you want to look at stats of the task runs for the past week. So we have some of the cards here that you can choose based on your user preferences. Let's say that you are looking into only org admin stuff. So you can choose some of the cards here that will be saved in your preferences. So next time you log in, you will see only those cards that you're interested in. So let's talk about some of the cards that we display by default. So if you see here, we show the weekly volume processed here, how many tasks that you are processing, what's the environment health. Let's say that you want to know that, okay, on a particular agent environment, what are the system resources that are being used so that you can do your capacity planning based on the resources that we show up on here. We also have a card here forecasting volumes. So based on your past usage, whether you should expect the uptick in your data volume, or it's going to be the same, or it's going to be down with respect to your data volume, so that when you are planning on your capacity, or if you have to add on the resources, let's say that you're doing some best practices review, whether there is a need to add on agents to the group. So based on the information that we display here, that will help you out for the better decision making, so that you can leverage some of the features that we have in cloud and improve your implementation. All right. So we also have on the dashboard here agent upgrade status. So every release, you would like to look at a consolidated view of all the agents that you have in your org, right? So you might be using some, let's say 50 agents, or it could be in one of your sub-orgs. So this is the one single page that will give you a consolidated view of all the agents, whether the agent was upgraded successfully or not, so that you can look at only on those agents which didn't upgrade successfully. So very helpful feature for admins, so that you can improve your operational intelligence and use this as a platform to better operate your environment. Right? So we also show some of the recommendations here. Let's say that using some of the features that we know that we can improve on. So it's not a global static bank that we show to every customer. So these are very personalized or targeted recommendations that we show based on either you have opened up the case, or the features that you're using, or based on the connectors that you're using. So you can start looking at the recommendations and see that whether you can leverage those and improve the implementation. We have analytics part here, where we show all these adoption, best practices, operational, peer branching, predictive reports. So you can look at what are the best practices that we have working with different customers with respect to your implementation. So it's a very focused report which will give you how the usage trend is, how are you processing volume. Let's say that we often get customers request that I want to archive my active log history, right? Because I want to look at some point. I want to look at that how much data that I was processing, let's say 3 months versus what I'm processing now, right? So we do maintain the history here. You can look at some of the adoption reports here, which will give you that whether you want to look at the task done by connection type, task done by app type, task done by schedule, or you want to look at the reports by secure agent. So we have different attributes that we came out with. So you can drill down to any of the attributes that you are interested in to look at that, okay, how you are processing your volume, use this information for your capacity planning. If you want to know that, okay, how much data that I processed last week to a specific endpoint, let's say that you want to look at how much data I processed to a specific Salesforce connection last week, whether there is a need to increase some of the APIs limit, or you have to add on some resources on your endpoint that you're processing. So you need some ground level information. Based on that, you can decide on which endpoint that you need to improve on, or which database or which flat file that you have to add on more resources. So let's take an example here, task done by app type. So at this point, we do show some high-level summary of if you see here, task done by app type. We're saying that the most common type that you are using is the data synchronization, which is 76% among all the different services that you have. So if you see here, we have task done by app connection type. If you want to look at, okay, you have multiple connection types. What is the endpoint that you are hitting the most with your cloud implementation? So on this page, you will see a very high-level summary, but you can drill down to this report to get the details of it. So we provide a nice graph overview. You can switch to either the table view, or you can look at the chart view, and it's the user configurable. You can look at the monthly data, or if you want interested in weekly or daily, or we also have a slider that will filter down to a specific date range that you are interested in. So not only that, if you see here, we also have a filter attribute. So if you have a requirement that, okay, I just want to look at the usage trend only for a specific task type, or only for a specific connection, or I just want to see that, okay, I have multiple agents. How is my data getting processed on a specific agent? So you can drill down, put up your filter attributes, and we will customize the report based on it. We also have volume transport option here. So you want to look at on a specific date or for a specified date range, how much data that you process, and which service process how much volume. So if you just look at here, so we show you data replication on 9th of March, you processed around 127 tasks to process the complete volume. And here is the graph which will tell you that how much volume you process on a specific date with respect to the number of tasks. So like this, we have a bunch of other reports and that you can use to get the deeper insight in your implementation or how you're processing the data volume. We also have best practices. Now, these are the best practices that we provide around your use case implementation. Some of the best practices they are common across all the customers, right? Just taking a simple example as user management control. How do you know that how many users are actually logging into the cloud? There might be some inactive users that are no longer in the company that you want to clean up. So as an org admin, you really want to get a 360-degree view of all the users' history so that you can maintain only those users and clean up the rest based on some information. So you can drill down the details. It will tell you that which particular user logged in on which date. Now, based on this information, you can decide on whether to clean up your repository or you can still retain this. We also have a nice visual interface to show you that how many user groups you have in your org and how those users are scattered around it, right? So this gives you a complete view of how the user management control is configured in your org. So based on that, we can use this infrastructure and say that, okay, whether there is a need to add more user groups or we can just narrow it down to few and shuffle the users among each other. So we also have operational reports here. This is the most important one that every customer asks for. Let's say that you are hitting an issue that the task started performing really slow, and you want to look at the past history, how it was performing on a specific date, what actually happened on that date that is causing the performance degradation. So we show you a very high-level summary here, like for the last month, what is the success rate, how many tasks were successful, how many tasks were showed up the warnings, and how many tasks actually failed. So this gives you a level of confidence, right? You're working on their implementation. And on each phase, you would like to know that, okay, whether you're getting a high success rate. How do you tell that your implementation was successful or not? So you can use this information, which will give a very high-level overview on your success rate. But you want to drill down to see that for each report that how each task is performing. So this is the report that will take you at the task level, and once you click on the chart, it will give you the last 20 runs, or it will give you the information even from past 3 months, so that you can look at what is the throughput that you have been getting from past 3 months. Use that information to determine that whether you're going to meet your SLAs or not. So as Kripa mentioned during the agent groups demo, we also have agent environment history, right? So how do you scale up your agent groups? How do you decide that, okay, how many agents that you want, right? So you want to do the load balancing, but how do you know that what is the load that you're getting now based on what are the volume that you're processing? So Informatica Discovery IQ will provide you an interface here which will show you your system resources. Use this information to decide that how you want to do the capacity planning, whether there is a need to add some more resources on your box, or we can scale up to by adding more agent groups so that you get the best performance using Informatica Cloud. Okay. We also have peer benchmarking, where we show that how your industry peers are using Informatica Cloud, how much volume your peer industries are processing using Informatica Cloud, what are features they are using which you may leverage to improve your implementation. For example, here is, if you see here, it's showing that we are using, in this particular org, there are 6 task types and 27 connectors that your org is registered to versus 43 connectors that your industry peers are using it, right? So you may look at what are the other connectors that other industry peers are using it, and whether you can leverage those to improve the implementation. So we have some predefined bundles that will accelerate your implementation as you are going through your mapping design implementation stage. So you can see that this particular org is using only 3 bundles, versus your industry peers are using 9 bundles. We also have the last chart here, which will show you how much volume that you are processing versus your industry peers are processing. Okay. Now, the last one we have in the predictive forecasting volume is based on the past usage, based on the data load that you have been processing for the last 3 months, we use algorithms underneath to predict that whether you should expect an uptick in your volume. So this is very useful information, right? Let's say that you start off with your testing. You may be processing only 10,000 requests to do the sanity test, right? But down the line, when you go live, how do you do that? How much uptake you would get based on the load that you have been processing during your test, so that you can scale up your resources. You can decide on whether there is a need to add more agent groups or agents to the existing agent group. Okay. We also have a powerful recommendations engine here, which is really based on the usage, the features that you are using in your implementation, based on the knowledge-based articles that you have searched on. Let's say that you log into our community article, you log into our knowledge base, or you're searching for in one of the media that we have stored information related to Informatica Cloud. So we capture that, so we tag it, and based on that we show you all relevant KPs or even the YouTube videos on the single page, that you can see that, okay, what are the recommendations, what are the best practices, what are the relevant KPIs with respect to my implementation, rather than you looking into it, each of the sources that we have stored the information. This is the page that you can land up to and see that, okay, what are the recommendations with respect to the connector or the features. Or let's say that you open up a case, you're interacting with support engineer. If you have escalated some case, or if you search for something in a knowledge base, we tag it, we store that, and we show you relevant KBs from all the sources, rather than you looking at only in that particular media and looking at very limited information. We also have recommendations based on our subject matter experts, what they have pre-built, working with different customers. Let's say that you're running your cloud agents on non-supported platform, right? So we show that recommendation on this page, that you're running on a non-supported platform. If you're processing huge volumes using standard Salesforce API, it's very likely you're going to land up into some issues like timeout issues. So we give you recommendations based on how you are processing or how you have implemented your task, so that you take proactive measures and improve the implementation. Okay. We have log analysis. This is a very advanced log analysis given to help our org admins. You can use this platform, use this page to manage all your agents right from this page. If you have multiple agents, you would like to have one single page where you can see that how is my agent environment, what are kind of errors that I'm hitting from all the agents, what is the most common error for that particular agent, right? How can I say that, okay, my agent is stable now, right? So we also show you the error trends for each agent. You can choose that all agents register to that org, or you can just filter down to a specific agent that you are interested in. See what error or the error trends. What is the most common error that you're hitting? And we also show you the relevant recommendations based on the error that you're hitting, so you can start troubleshooting on your own. We also show some error trends based on the specific date range, so you can see this window and say that, okay, on this particular date you had a high number of fatal errors, right? What actually happened on that? We also have a provision to get into the details from all the events that occurred in all the files that we have on your agent. So if you open up a case with support engineer, this is the platform we're going to use. So we will come back to this, get a broader picture on what actually happened, rather than going through the same traditional approach that let's look at the agent log, Tomcat log, or the session log. We can directly jump onto this page down based on the timestamp and actually the failure happened, and it will give you the relevant logs from all the information that we have. Very useful feature for our org admins to see that, how their agent environment health is, not limited to just one particular agent. If you have sub-orgs, you can switch to that org that you are interested in and use this page to manage all your agents proactively. The last we have is upgrade checks. So every release we try to make upgrades as seamless as possible, but there are some dependencies on the agent resources, right? So we have taken one step ahead, think that, okay, let's be proactive, let's come out with the pre-upgrade health checks that we can display to our customers, whether they are meeting all those prerequisites or not, whether it comes to whether you have adequate disk space, whether the agent is able to communicate to all the URLs that we're going to use during upgrade. So we don't want to basically go through the same traditional approach, waiting for that issue to occur and then come back and troubleshoot it. We want all our customers to use this dashboard, make sure that they are meeting all the prerequisites for upgrade, and that will help to have a smooth upgrade going forward, right? Not only that, Let's say that you're running 1,000 tasks. How can you be more confident that the upgrade did not impact your implementation? So we have a vision here in the dashboard where you can come back and say that, okay, here is my critical loss list, right? I just want to monitor these tasks, and if these tasks show me successful after upgrade, I can confidently say to my management or to the team saying that, okay, the upgrade did not impact, and the upgrade was successful for your implementation. So post-upgrade, we will show you a card here which will give you the status for all the critical ones that you did, and that will give you the confidence that, okay, how the upgrade went through for your implementation. The last thing that we have here is upgraded features. Every release, we come out with the release notes, but it's not that, in the release notes that whatever changes or improvements that we are doing is applicable for your implementation. You may not want to look at all the changes or the features that we implemented. You just want to look at all the features that's going to have an impact on the implementation or the work that you have implemented. So we have a nice scanner which will scan through all the release notes, show you the cards that is very applicable to the implementation or the features of the connectors that you are using it. So you can look at only these cards and see that if there is any impact rather than looking at the complete release notes. All right, so that's all I have. Over to you, Austin.
Thanks, Abhishek, for a very, very comprehensive demo. Very great set of functionalities with the new support offering. Gives people a lot of great insights. Now I'm just going to take control back from you. Okay. So we've pretty much gone through the main demo segments of our Spring Release webinar. Let's go over some of the other enhancements that are there in this particular release. So for those of you that saw our November press release with Salesforce, you'll know that we have an Odata provider. For those of you that know more about Odata, Odata is basically this protocol that allows access to a lot of internal data sources. It could be a custom-built app, it could be a legacy app, it could basically be any other app, and allows you to reference that data into an Odata consumer. Now, Salesforce Lightning Connect is basically a type of Odata consumer, and using an external object in Salesforce, you can actually display a lot of these back-end data systems through Odata endpoints into Salesforce. So we actually have the JDBC connector, the SAP Table Reader connector, and we have numerous other connectors that will be soon exposed as Odata endpoints. We also, we also have a number of connector enhancements to talk about. And the way we think about connector enhancements as we're planning a roadmap in the product management team is to really put it into three buckets: security, performance, and the functionality that's exposed within that connector. On the security front, we're happy to announce support for Cipher Cloud private proxy for the Salesforce connector. On the Amazon Web Services front, we're announcing client-side encryption for Amazon Redshift, Amazon S3, as well as DynamoDB. We have improved logging capabilities for Redshift, S3, and DynamoDB. So in the past, you'll see that all of the logs would come in as one, and now we have the ability to separate out verbose logs from normal logs. We also have HTTP compression for SAP connector, so this allows you to move more data in bulk between SAP and other applications or databases. We have identity and access management for Amazon S3, and for DynamoDB, we have the ability to parallel scan and read data from DynamoDB. On the NetSuite front, we've updated our WSDL, and we also have support for list record type custom fields, as well as multiple object list support. We've also announced connectivity to Tableau software, so we have a new native connector there for those of you that are using Tableau in your organizations. And that basically brings us to the end of our presentation. And so now is the Q&A part of the presentation. Please go ahead and type your questions in the chat panel. We already see plenty of questions there. Give us a few moments as we go through them. So the first question we have here is, how can we perform upserts? Krupa, go ahead.
Sure. So we do have the capability to perform upserts on targets. So what you will see in the Cloud Mapping Designer is within the target transformation, you have the ability to choose the operation for each target that you add to your mapping. So for example, if you're trying to insert into one of your targets and upsert into another, you can go ahead and select the operation within the target shape and choose the field by which you would be upserting as well. We also have the ability to support update strategy. Again, for ease of use, we've logically grouped that into the target transformation. So when you are updating into a target, you can choose the update strategy and define your update strategy right there within the target transformation shape. So you do not need to add a separate transformation into your pipeline. So you can just go ahead into your target and choose that. We have the ability to route your data into multiple targets. If you want to optionally route based on a filter criteria, you can add filters into your mappings and then route them into multiple target shapes. We do not yet support the router transformation, but the functionality is possible using multiple filters and multiple targets that you can route your data into.
Excellent. Thank you for answering that, Krupa. The next question we have on the docket here is around data masking. Where is the masking performed? How does it work? Naresh or Krupa?
Yeah, so the data masking transformation is actually performed at the agent. So depending on the masking rule that the user has selected, the masking of the data happens within the agent. And let's say you have a use case where you're moving data from on-premise to the cloud. So let's say it's Redshift on cloud. You can mask the data before it leaves your firewall and into the cloud. So all the transformation, the masking related work happens within your firewall.
Thank you for answering that, Naresh. The next question we have here is, what is Odata and how does it move the data?
So Odata is, just like we have JDBC and ODBC as easy to use protocols to access relational data, Odata is a similar standard, but it's built on REST. So it makes you, it gives you a way to access data sources using the REST protocol. And typical use case for that would be to be able to access data in real time without moving the data through, let's say, a web application or a mashup. So in this case, through Salesforce, you'll be able to access data in real time using the Odata protocol and build custom applications on Force.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Naresh. The next question we have here is around secure agents. Within DSS tasks, do we have to specify the agent that it needs to run under? Krupa, do you want to take that?
Sure. Some type of tasks like the mapping configuration tasks and mappings, where you are used to associating a task with an agent, you'll now notice that you can associate them with runtime environments. With data synchronization task, it is inferred through the connection that is associated with. So the system goes ahead and infers the runtime environment that the task is associated with, and is able to still distribute your data synchronization task across all the agents in that runtime environment.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Krupa. The next question we have here is around Discovery IQ. How do I access Discovery IQ, and how can I control access to Discovery IQ within my organization? Check. that?
Sure. So Discovery IQ is been enabled by default for every customer, so you can start using it right away. There is no additional cost as such, so you can log into the Cloud UI, and we have opened it up only for org administrators for now. So if you see that, we have added this under Administration tab, and only org admins can see it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that, Abhishek. Just a couple more questions coming in. Just give us a moment to go through the chat panel. Okay, we have a different question around secure agents here.
We have a couple of different questions related to how the different agents within a runtime environment would work if they belong to different Windows servers with different rights, and how parameter files can be shared amongst the agents. So one of the things that you can manage on your own and customize is the agents that you add into runtime environment are expected to be fairly homogeneous, meaning that they have access to the same kind of connectivity. That, for example, if one of the agents is able to access a parameter file, then the other agent has a similar ability to access the files. If one of the agents is able to access your test database, for instance, the other agent in the environment also has the same level of access and connectivity. So you would be able to manage, and it's expected that your agents are homogeneous from that perspective, but they're very similar in their capabilities, and so we can pretty much delegate a task to any of the agents in the group and expect that it would work in a similar fashion. So if you have two different agents in a runtime environment, each of them running under different Windows users, that is fine as long as those users have the similar privileges to be able to access the endpoints that you're trying to leverage through that agent.
Excellent. Thank you for that answer, Krupa. So, folks, we're right now approaching the end of our presentation. We're almost at 1 p.m. So we're just going to take one last question. So we now have a question around connectors, whether we have a dedicated connector for AWS RDS, and whether a business service can be defined for a REST service. Naresh?
So for AWS RDS, we do have a connector available today. So you can leverage that to be able to be right into RDS. For REST support, we do have support for REST, and there's also a question on support for Swagger, and that is something that we will provide in a future release.
Excellent. Well, we're at the top of the hour, folks. Thank you for attending our Spring Release webinar. We were very happy to provide demos for you. A recording of this webinar will be provided to you as well. And thank you all for attending.